From Studio 303, it's the Caravan Library of Lore, Stranger Than Fiction News, bringing light to unknown stories around us. A pathogen that resists almost all kinds of drugs developed to treat or kill is moving rapidly across the world, and public health experts are stymied on how to stop it. By now, that's a familiar scenario, the central narrative of emergence of the antibiotic resistance bacteria. But this particular pathogen isn't a bacterium. It's a yeast, a new variety of organism so common that it is used as one of the basic tools of lab science. It transformed into an infection so disturbing that one lead researcher called it more infectious than Ebola. And this was announced at the International Conference last week. You can read more on this story at Wired.com. The controversial SOAM Biotech Research Foundation in Seoul, South Korea, has been creating pet clones since 2006. Miracle Millie, a 6-year-old Chihuahua from Puerto Rico, was awarded the title of the world's most cloned dog by the Guinness Book of Records after scientists in South Korea created a whopping 49 genetically identical copies of her. You can read more on this story at OddityCentral.com. NASA is preparing to send a probe closer to the sun than any other spacecraft has ventured, enduring wicked heat while zooming through the solar corona to study its outermost part of the stellar atmosphere that gives rise to solar winds. The Parker Solar Probe, a robotic spacecraft the size of a small car, is slated to launch from Cape Canaveral in Florida, with an August 6th targeted as the launch date for the planned 7-year mission. The story was reported by Reuters, and you can read more about it at yahoonews.com. A flying manta ray-like creature was spotted in Spain. A man in Almeria, southern Spain, says he saw a flying creature that he wasn't able to identify. The 68-year-old man, who provided his full name but asked to remain anonymous, told Cryptozoology News on Friday that he was driving home when the event took place at 12 p.m. back on June 27th. It was just about 5 seconds. It flew from my left, straight across the road and over the top of the car lights. It was about 5 meters off the floor and flying in a straight line, he said. The eyewitness says the being was about 5 meters long, which is about 8 feet, and appeared to be black. The wings were as long as the body, and it ran from the neck to the end and was tapered, like bat wings in a way, but more manta ray in the style of the flapping, he explained. You can read more on this story at cryptozoologynews.com. And a dogman encounter reported in Arkansas. A woman in Celeburne County says she saw a bipedal creature with a wolf head. The 30-year-old dental worker, who provided a full name and contact information and specific location of the sighting, but asked to remain anonymous, told Cryptozoology News she encountered the unusual being back on June 15th. Quote, "I was driving home and had to stop and pull over to make a call," she said, about the daylight encounter. Quote, "I was talking on the phone when it seemed something dark was moving in the woods in the corner of my eye to my right. The woman says she had to look at the creature a few times because it didn't move at first. I couldn't tell until it moved. It moved stealthily on 2 feet right by the edge of the woods. I think it was trying to cross the road but stopped when it saw me." She described it as dark brown and gray wolf-like creature with a few bear features. It was aged a bit, and it seemed to know its surroundings, kind of bear to wolf-like, but standing up walking, but it did not seem afraid. It just moved away slowly. It was wanting something or searching. I think my vehicle must have spooked it because it seemed like it wanted to cross the road, but it couldn't. It was very creepy, so I just pulled back onto the highway and left and kept driving until I got myself under control, she said. This, too, was reported at cryptozoologynews.com. And if you're having a hard time believing in cryptids, the undiscovered creatures of this planet, Well, here's a story that's interesting. A scary new venomous snake was discovered. Scientists searching for sea snakes never expected to stumble across this find. In a chance discovery, a team of biologists were returning from a sea snake research mission in Queensland, Australia, when they found a new venomous species. The team, led by University of Queensland's Associate Professor Brian Fry, uncovered a new species of bandy snake on a town on the west coast of the Cape York Peninsula in the far northeast of Australia. You can read more on this new discovery at foxnews.com. And that brings us nicely into this week's fun fact. Hunting unicorns is actually legal in the state of Michigan. And that wraps it up for this week's Stranger Than Fiction news. Now let's head into the forest and across the creek to the Caravan, Library of Lore.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare.
Be afraid.
No. Be afraid. Be very afraid. I'm your #1 fan.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk here. You're gonna need a bigger boat.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
They're here.
Here's Johnny.
I see dead people.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
This 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes.
Power of Christ! That the power of Christ compels you!
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
What do you want?
I want to hear you scream.
The box. Who's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
They mostly come at night. Mostly.
Look at me, Damien. It's all for you.
Listen to them, children of the night. What music they make.
I said, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos. Movies make psychos or create blood.
Red. Red rum. Red rum. Red rum.
Have you checked the children?
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy. Here already! You're next! You're next! You're next!
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
What an excellent day for an exorcism. I'm gonna swat that fly. I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know and they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Yes, Father.
Do your very best not to scream.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
Welcome inside the Caravan, the movie theater of lore. Tonight's conversation, favorite horror movies, or psychological thrillers, or best scary sci-fi films. What are your favorites? And of course, you all have to leave I just came from the South. You all have to leave your comments as to what your favorite horror, scary, psychological thriller, or sci-fi scary movie is of all time. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm scared. I am
Good.
scared.
You should be.
Too much of this paranormal weirdness going on. I started to share a story with you the other day, so I will share this, and then we're going to get into movies, scary movies. So I stepped out onto my patio, and my back was to the sliding glass door, probably 2 feet. And it was the middle of the day, so it was nice and sunny out, and I was texting a friend. And my back, like I said, was right to the sliding glass door, and all the lights were off in the house because it was the middle of the day, and 3 knocks on the sliding glass door. I turned around because now I'm expecting somebody came into my house and was trying to get my attention. So I opened it because I could not see into the house because all the lights were off. So it was like looking at just a mirror, and I see myself. So I opened the door, and I couldn't find anybody in the house. The cat was outside playing in the grass. Wasn't a cat. I have no idea what it was. So in my little recticle here, I have a model of the Spinosaurus from Jurassic Park, and I hung it on the wall inside the little booth here that I record with and we do the show out of. So I'm on the couch, and I was doing whatever it was, I don't even remember, and I heard something fall. And I didn't make a whole lot out of it. I just figured, okay, yeah, something fell over, but I was in the middle of something else. So I had gotten up to either happy, but I go out on the patio because it's my personal Zen room. And I walked out into the patio, but from the patio door, you can see right inside the little recording booth here. And I didn't see my Spinosaurus hanging on the wall. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that's what it was. It must have fallen off the wall. Big deal. It wasn't until the next day I came in here. It's hanging on the wall. I was like, wait a minute. I thought I didn't see it hanging on the wall. Now it's on the wall. So what fell over, and why is it hanging back up on the wall again? I don't know. So there you go.
Weird.
So do I invite strange activity into the house by doing these type of shows? I don't know.
But it is said that, whether you're recording a paranormal episode, listening to a paranormal podcast, or even watching that type of a movie, energetically, what you're sending out, you're a magnet, so you're drawing it in. And I believe there was a scary movie that came out within the last 2 years. It had that nun in it. Was it The Conjuring?
Yes, I believe so.
And people were saying that they were experiencing paranormal weird things in their homes or later on that night after they watched that movie.
Anybody seen The Conjuring and have strange activity after watching it?
Well, any movie
or any type
paranormal,
right,
demon, ghost related. Yeah.
So if you had that question thrown to you, what is your go-to scary movie? Do you have one?
Oh, geez. Right now, if I was going to watch a scary movie, I think that I would re-watch Hush. Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
For me, this was a really big one because, and I won't give away too much, but basically, the woman is deaf. So the whole movie, you lose it. The way that they film it, you lose your hearing. You lose that sense. And when you completely associate yourself with a movie, when you're getting lost into the movie, so it's like you are them, you're in it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So to watch a movie like that, where stuff is happening and you're expecting this or expecting that, but you don't have that sense, it really messed with me.
Mm-hmm.
It made it more scary, and it made me more, I love psychological more than the gore,
Oh, I'm very much
So,
on board with no jump scare movies as much as the psychological thriller movies. Very much on
right.
board. I think it draws the viewer in a little bit more and gets the mind going and a thought
Yes.
process as to what may become, what the possibilities are. In a jump scare movie, it's just pretty much hack and gore and okay,
Right.
it's a chance for your significant other to latch onto you, and it's kind of going on a thrill ride. But the psychological thriller definitely has a lot of
It's a deeper, and it
right.
stays with you more after it's over.
I believe so.
You
I believe
know,
so.
I think so.
And there
too.
are some that are certainly classics. Some of my favorite psychological thriller, and of course, this doesn't cover all of them, but the classics, The Shining, the adaptation of The Shining from Stephen King. It's the tone, it was the music, it was the scenery, it was everything compiled together that set the tone for you emotionally to experience the entire onslaught of what was happening, but it was not a hack and gore movie by any means. And I'm sure most of all of our listeners have seen The Shining, and they may agree or disagree with me. Another favorite of mine is Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, that is
Wonderful
one of my favorites
psychological
as well.
thriller. Absolutely
Yes.
wonderful psychological thriller because it starts off very mundane and just like your Sunday night movie that you used to watch on TV, and then it makes those twists and turns going, and of course, the entire story ends with you going, what just happened?
Yes.
And now you're going back to reflect everything that transpired at the end of the movie. Wonderfully well done. So that would be two favorite psychological thrillers of mine. And of course, that list does go on. Seven, amazing. Absolutely amazing with Brad Pitt. Very terrifying. That's very terrifying because actually it took me to a place that I could not predict what was going to happen next. And that's part of the fun of it. So Seven was a good and then of course there's the other classics too. I don't know if you've seen the original black and white, which was done in black and white by Alfred Hitchcock, Psycho.
Yes.
Wow.
I really like that one. I didn't like the new one. I like the old one.
Yes. Well, look, the acting in there was absolutely superior. The way it was shot was absolutely superior with shadows. And who that has seen the movie takes a shower and doesn't have those thoughts go through your mind when you're taking a shower as to what's on the other side of that shower curtain. None of that was even prevalent before that movie came out. Absolutely fantastic movie.
There's also The Birds.
Yes, right?
That was a good
Very
one.
good. Yeah, it was good. And leave the classics alone. They were meant to be classics. Just leave them alone. I ask and I beg and I plead to Hollywood, please do not remake some of these classics because, it might be better CGI or better special effects or your favorite actor playing the role, but the original stands alone so well that it really needs to be remembered as that. Nosferatu, amazing horror film for the silent era. And that's what really made it even more scary was the fact that it was a silent movie. But the imagery that was portrayed in that as a vampire movie, the brilliance of it at that time to use the resource of it being a silent movie. He was terrifying. He's absolutely my favorite vampire of all the movie vampires. Nosferatu takes the cake. You see that, you go, out the door.
15 when I saw that for the first time. I think I was 15. And, I fell in love immediately. It was, it was classic. It was wonderful. And it's something that I can still love, and watch today over a lot of other movies. I love, of course, I love all vampire movies, and I don't know, I'll just throw it out there. Interview with Vampire is definitely another one of my favorites. And when it comes to remaking films, Dracula, it's been made so many times, but you know what? I'm still open to seeing it continue to be made again, to see what, that is one that I would definitely be like, sure, make it again. Let's see what it looks like now, with all the things available to filmmakers nowadays.
Well, I agree. The Bram Stoker's Dracula version, I mean, really, that painted a creep factor and so well done. I mean, so well done. Gary Oldman just hit that one right out of the ballpark in his portrayal. So, in the makeup and the artistry behind it was just absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, that one would be up there with, as far as the term Dracula goes, I would say Bram Stoker's Dracula release with Gary Oldman is one of my favorites. Hey, Jen, let's take a moment for a word from our sponsor.
7 Up, 7 Up, 7 Up, the Uncola, 7 Up.
This is your Uncola Underground with a tip on how you can make big money in your spare time. How? Simply by returning 7-Up money-back bottles for real money. That's right. Your local grocer will give you cold, hard cash for any money-back bottles of the Uncola you bring back. It's a great way to supplement your income and save up for really important things in life. Things like crayons and jute mill stock, 8x10 glossies of your loved ones, more Uncola, less Uncola, all of the above, some of the above.
Uncola, 7-Up is the one Uncola, 7-Up is the one Uncola, 7-Up is the one.
The summer months are upon us, and we have you covered with Caravan Library of Lore t-shirts and tank tops for men and women. But soon, our favorite fall season will be here, and we have warm, comfortable Caravan hoodies and hot beverage travel mugs too. Find pillows and blankets and kids items too at caravanoflore.threadless.com. Again, caravanoflore.threadless.com. Couple other questions for you, like found footage films. And I think that was a really unique idea. It started with Blair Witch Project, although it started before Blair Witch Project, but Blair Witch really brought the found footage films to the forefront. And it was an absolutely superior, well done film. And it was scary. It was truly scary. But again, it was more psychological because there really was no violence. And spoiler alert, but there really was no violence in that movie whatsoever. Right. But yet you were on the edge of your seat waiting for that violence to happen. And when you're making your audience involuntarily do something that, as they're taking you on this story ride, so to speak, you have complete control of your audience by doing something like that. And I thought that was absolutely fantastic too. So, but then you get movies like Paranormal Activity. Yes, go on.
Well, no, all I was going to say is I wanted to go back really quick because I definitely want to mention Wolfman with Anthony Hopkins. That was that is one of my number one. I guess if I was to say what would be my go-to, it would be that one. I want to rewatch Hush because I liked how they did it. Well, with Wolfman, I loved the scenes when he was running through the forest, and I love what that did because it was one of those things where you don't see it fully. It's just this quick shooting thing, and you're sitting there going, oh, what is it? Where is it? You know what I mean? And and it had a big influence. I don't know if I'll share this little secret, but it had a big influence on the Caravan itself. Because there's that image of the dark forest, and then he goes into the dark forest where there's the gypsy, and she's in her caravan, and she's telling him what he came to seek, and that was one of the visualizations that I had on the night that we were coming up with the name for our show.
And I had the image of the Lon Chaney's Wolfman with that, and again, that was in black and white when you visit, because it's following the same storyline. Or goes and visits the gypsy woman in the caravan in the dark woods in a black and white film with the fog, which was dry ice at the time, but it was a wonderful Hollywood special effect with, the fog only inches off the ground, and, it just painted that mystical, terribly written music, but it was so fitting for a film like that. And then to do the remake the way it was, I thought it was really good too. And, Anthony Hopkins, what has he done that was bad? I actually watched
right now. I love all his movies.
Really, seriously, he is Sir Anthony Hopkins. I actually watched a video the other night, and I was completely surprised at the fact that Anthony Hopkins, and I didn't really research when the video was done, but it was in his honor, and he was in the audience in attendance, and an orchestra played Anthony Hopkins' first symphony that he has ever written, something 30 years ago. And it was just a beautiful piece of music. And I'm listening to it going, this came from Anthony Hopkins. I was blown away. Wow. So if you guys get a chance, just go to YouTube and Anthony Hopkins Symphony and take a listen, because wow, the man was definitely gifted with musical writing and acting skills. And there you go. Kudos. And of course, that's why he was so sought after for those types of movies, because he could nail it so well. what better casting could you do for a movie like Silence of the Lambs other than, Hannibal Lecter himself is Anthony Hopkins. Seriously, it's just fantastic stuff. It really, I know I sound kind of blathering about favorite horror films, but these are ones that definitely stand alone.
That's what this episode is about tonight, is the scary things that, because honestly, really, if it wouldn't have been, for me, horror movies were a big thing for my dad and I. This was something that we would do. From when I was little, I think I first started on, it was the black and white, and, Swamp Thing, Wolfman, the vampire Dracula ones, and then I was really into the Addams Family and the Munsters, and then as I got older, then there was the Silence of the Lambs, Children of the Corn, there was The Thing, and all these movies, and I grew up on them. Shows that came out that were more oriented for my age. So you had Goosebumps, and then Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Right.
And I loved the feeling that these gave me. And it just enticed you to want to learn more. You hear something on a movie or a documentary, and then you're wanting to read about it. You're wanting to find out more about it. And then it just sticks with you. It's something that just, if you catch the bug, it's with you forever. I know that I can always be this way.
No, I agree. And I think it probably is one of the scariest movies of all time. And I think that if you were to, and I haven't done this yet, but I think if you were to go to, let's say, top 100 best horror or scary movies of all time, you would probably find close to number one. And it definitely did some serious mental twisting to me as a young kid is The Exorcist. That movie terrified me, and it terrifies me to this day. Even if it's on TV, I don't watch it. I don't. It is that scary. I've seen it twice in its entirety, uninterrupted, and I was left going, no.
Well, for the longest time, I ended up getting The Exorcist and Poltergeist confused. So for a while I thought, oh yeah, no, I've seen it. And then I'm like, wait, no, it was Poltergeist that I saw. That was another movie that I saw when I was young.
By Steven Spielberg was Poltergeist.
Right. Now I really trying to sit and think about it. I don't know if I've ever seen it.
Really? That would be one that you would have to watch by yourself or with an adult, not your kids. The language gets pretty strong, and it is very demonic. And I think, again, I'm sure all of our listeners are familiar with The Exorcist, but it is very demonic, but it has made a huge impact back in 1973 when it first came out. And what was disturbing to me personally wasn't so much the mid-story. It was how the movie started, because William Blatty wrote this from actual events. And he starts this in the Middle East, where everything gets uncovered. The cradle of life. This is where good and evil existed. And it got unearthed. And it got brought back to the States. And then the whole thing develops from there, of this demon that takes over this young girl. And it's terrifying. And of course, a lot of exorcisms today still use the same tactics. And that's where the movie was getting its information from, was right from the Catholic Church on how exorcisms are actually performed. If that particular church were to train its fathers or priests into performing exorcisms. Yeah, and that it was the reality of it. It was the reality that this is a possible thing. I'm telling you.
No, I know. And that goes back to me talking about like unsolved mysteries. It was the real people stuff, the murders, the kidnappings that scared me, but the serious fact that people can spontaneously combust. I mean, really, you're sitting there, you're doing nothing, you're on fire. And it's just like, geez, man. And then, when you're talking about unearthing things, okay, just because it's been in the news lately, I'll bring it up, the sarcophagus that was found that they decided to open. Did you read the update about it and what was found inside?
Besides the multiple skeletons in the sewer water that was in there, and it smelled god awful, and there's no way I would have even inhaled any of that, because God knows what you're ingesting when you're breathing that in.
That's
yes.
Well,
scary.
For me, it's just one of those things where it's like, when I was really little, I really loved stuff like archaeology and all this, that was something I had considered for a time. And I think that it comes from my parents being rock hounders, and we do have, we have corporalite, which is petrified dinosaur poo. And, it was fascinating to me as a kid, and then you've got those bugs that leave the impression in the rocks, and and so it's amazing to find things, and you get curious and you want to know all about it. And so, yes, I can understand you find this box and you want to know so bad what's inside. But now, I mean, we've got scanners. So I think that I would be satisfied if I could peek inside electronically and just leave it alone and not. But at the same time, you removed it from where it was. So sometimes I think that at first it might not matter. You moved it. You don't have to open it to start it. You moved it. And I remember being really young, and there was some sci-fi book we were in an antique store, and I wish I could remember, but I remember I was reading these books as I waited for my dad. And one of the things it said is that most sci-fi movies or books everything comes from some sort of truth. So really think about that. All these movies talk about these curses and unleashing this hell stuff onto the world.
Why, of course.
Maybe it's true, and we haven't found it yet. What if there's a box that one day we're going to open, and it's just like this portal, and these locusts come out, and this monster demon, you know what I mean? And it's just like,
right. Well,
Yeah.
running on that vein, seriously, that's where George Lucas ran with in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Now, the funny thing is, and I didn't realize this until I watched an episode of The Big Bang Theory, Indiana Jones really was not relevant in that movie whatsoever, because the Nazis still got the Ark, they still opened it, and they all died. Whether Indy was there or not, he had really no relevance to the storyline, but it was the what if thing. What if you open the Ark of the Covenant and it were discovered, and you have just unleashed the fury of either heavens above or hell below, however you want to take it in whatever religious aspect. Yeah. And it's kind of generalized that statement that you just said, but it's the what if you do open something, and unbeknownst to us, you have just unleashed something you might not be able to put back in the box again. And again, it goes back to the famous saying, you don't open Pandora's box.
Right?
Of the what?
There's a lot of crazy stuff involving the Nazis that I was thinking that maybe on a future episode or something that we could do with their use of, like witchcraft and searching for crazy things.
Hitler certainly had his fascinations with the occult, and that was no secret by his whatsoever. He knew, or he felt very strongly, that would be weaponized against the world in order to conform to, the Third Reich, was the use of the occult. So,
But who knows what he really found and what they destroyed and what they, you know
absolutely.
what I mean?
Stay tuned for the next episode of the Caravan, Library of Lore, where we talk about Nazis and their twisted sense of discovery. We may do that. We may very well do that. Of course, there is that long conversation we can have about the Nazi bell, and did that actually exist, and were the Nazis able to time travel? We will find out.
Yeah.
Of course, that all goes back to Kecksburg and
and we
the
can travel
acorn
down quite the rabbit
there.
hole with time travel too.
I know we can, absolutely. So these are all topics that we will adhere to at the Caravan of Lore. And of course, if you guys have topics too, I'd be really interested in hearing what your requests are for topics. But yeah, horror films. So your go-to horror film was what again?
Well, it would have to
Hush?
be Wolfman.
Oh, the
Wolfman. I mean, right now, I'm really, like, if I was to go to a horror movie right now, it would be Hush, just because I liked the experience and I'd like to watch it again.
You've only seen it once?
Only once.
Okay. Another favorite classic of mine, and of course it was remade, and then it was spun off and taken conceptual, and then it became a cultural icon as of late. But Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Again, it's in black and white, very creepy, very, very creepy, for one of the very first iconic zombie movies. And personally, as much as I do like Night of the Living Dead, and I do, now that it became more culturally popular with zombie movies, and there's a lot of good ones, there really are, pretty well written, and I know that I might get pushed around a little bit for my opinion, but I think one of my favorite zombie movies besides Zombieland was actually called The Crazies. and it was a live action adaptation from the comic book. And it was really well shot, and it was really well done. And again, it wasn't a hack and gore movie and a jump scare movie, but it was the terror of what if the living dead were walking the earth again, and I know with, the cultural icons of, the zombie movies. And a quick shout out to our personal friend over at the Caravan of Lore, Brett Butler, who was just announced as a character in the upcoming season of The Walking Dead. So congratulations, Brett. I'm excited for her that she will be participating, and we have been chatting, and she's been very gracious and thankful to all the support from not only myself, but from you as well in her re-emergence into television. So good for her.
Yeah, of course. And, on the zombie topic, I will have to say this. Okay, there's two kinds of movies that I will not watch.
Mm-hmm.
One is zombies. I am not into it. I feel gross. It's gross to me. I don't know. I can't do it. I know, and I just don't enjoy it. I think for me, to be very honest, I get way too wrapped up into the TV. Whether it's a television show or a movie, I completely submerge myself into this whatever I'm watching, and I really feel all the emotions, everything. And I just don't want to feel that way watching a movie. It's also, to me, it feels like something that you can't stop. Like zombies just seem harder to kill than like a vampire or a werewolf. It's just, and so the other movie, and I mean, hands down, you will not change my mind. Any type of movie involving a virus, like Contagion or whatever, no, don't talk to me about it. I don't want to hear about it, nothing. And I think, yes, I'm kind of a germaphobe.
There you go. See, you're hiding under the blankets again. The all-protective germ barrier, monster barrier blankets.
Yes, exactly.
But it affects the psyche.
Right. And see, and it's one of those things where this is real. Like, this is more real than a vampire or a werewolf or a zombie. I mean, like I was saying, I don't know if I said this on a previous episode. I think I did. But we had the monkeys. And it's not far from me. I mean, I literally lived like within 5 miles of this place for a time. And they got out. Monkeys that had been infected with these certain types of diseases. And there was one they never found. And it's just like, it doesn't matter whether it's a monkey that gets loose, a mouse or a rat, or if something goes wrong and a person has this human error and they personally contract this disease, whatever it is, and they don't realize it, or they try to act like, oh, well, I'll be fine, and then they go out to the world, we're freaking eliminated, and then there's no way to get it unless you're maybe rich or something, but still, that's just like...
That was a really good point brought up in the Crazies pathogen that was released, and of course, it would mess with your brain and deteriorate it, but you were still alive. And the wealthy thought, well, we've got money. No, it didn't matter how much money you had, you're still breathing the same air as the rest of us.
Exactly.
So yeah, along with that, I completely understand. And I think the movie Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman really kind of addressed that whole scenario in a non-cliche type of way, in what more of a reality response would be in that circumstance. But you're bringing up the fact that you had, experimental monkeys and then all of a sudden there's Bigfoot sightings in Oregon. What did that virus do to that monkey? Maybe that's what's going on there, is that Bigfoot is actually an infected monkey that is blossomed into a No, I know. And
Damn splat.
something like that wouldn't have carried on for as many years as it has through Native American folklore and stories and lore and history. So, no, I'm just teasing the fact that, yeah, there would be a creature running about the woods, but that's where Outbreak kind of touch base with, is that an infected monkey got brought into the country, and illegally, of course, and it, bit a caretaker that was bringing him into the country. He got sick. Well, the monkey got transferred to a pet store, and and the disease spread from there. And the next thing you know, you're in shutdown and quarantine, and we're threatening to nuke the entire city, in which, because you don't know who's got it and who doesn't got it. And for the betterment of humanity, it's better to lose, 10,000 people than 300 million people. It's a horrifying reality, but it's possible. Yeah. And that's what makes horror movies as fantastic as they are, because it's possible. It really is possible. And of course, with a lot of, psychological dementia that goes around, and, if you get yourself involved in it, probably the scariest thing you can do on a daily basis, just watch the news. That's what it's branded as. No, and I try not to either, but that's what it's branded as.
I quit watching the news years ago.
And, hear one story after another, and you realize there's a lot of humanity that is unstable that could be written into these rather crazy stories. And some of them can be turned into classics, and others of them, it could be just a B movie, but still, it has horror behind it, and it's rather scary. And it's kind of funny, one of the scariest things I think a horror movie can do is at the very beginning of the film, you see that key generator title somewhere on the screen, based on actual events. It's like, oh no, come on.
Oh my God.
It's based on actual events. If you tell me that,
oh yeah, no. I mean, every time that I've ever read that on a movie, I mean, my fists, I'm just like, oh God,
well,
here we
go.
Oh no.
That gets you right then and there. Right then and there, you're in for, oh my, what am I in for? What am I in for?
Exactly.
Unfortunately,
it's like you're a roller coaster. You're about to go down, and you're going, I think I made a mistake.
No, this is very true. This is very, very true. Well, I have to say, my go-to horror, scary, psychological thriller is gonna be The Shining. I have bestowed that film upon my kids to watch just for the theatrical art of it. But and I don't want to sound cliche, I really don't, but I've seen that film a number of times, and if it were on TV right now, I will sit down and watch it again. It's just very it really was masterfully done. Although it didn't follow the novel by Stephen King, it was an adaptation, and it was how that adaptation was done, because with any book that you read, you have to cut so much out of the book in order to make a 2-hour film or 2.5-hour film out of it. You have to lose a lot, because in the film, you have to take the time to introduce your characters, build the tone, build the story. And when you're reading a book, you can take it at your leisure. You can take 6 months to read a book if that's what you choose to do, and be immersed in the entire story. But with the film, you're on a time limit, so you gotta pick and choose what's really important. But The Shining is that one I will carry with me as probably my go-to. Really is. And that doesn't mean that there's no other horror movies out there that I don't enjoy. I don't watch much of the current stuff that's come out. I have yet to see A Quiet Place, but I will get around to seeing that. I think we'll
like it. I enjoyed it.
I probably would. I probably would enjoy it. I have no doubt. However, the Caravan of Lord keeps me rather busy on my free time, and hey, It's no regrets there because I enjoy doing this too. But there will be that time that I see that. I did see, and I do have to agree with you on your opinion of a pretty scary movie. And again, it was not a blood fest by any means, but it certainly was a psychological thriller. Was Witch. That was really
Oh,
dark. And I remember you told me about it, and I think you talked to Shannon LeGros about it on either when we were all talking on a show or you were on her show, whatever, but we were discussing our favorite movies and you brought up Witch and how much you really like that one. And you know, it starts off a little slow, but man, it takes you to some really dark and disturbing places in that time frame and in that era. Yeah, it was that was a good film too. It was a good film too.
Mhm. Yeah, any kind of vampire, werewolf, witches, give it to me. I'm down.
Okay. Very good. Well, let's see what kind of a scary movie we can make out of the Chupacabra. How about that? We'll try that one.
Nah,
Haven't
I
seen
don't know. I
any
mean, maybe.
big cinematic Hollywood production of the Chupacabra. Not my favorite cryptid by any means, though. It's really not
No,
my
mine
favorite
either.
cryptid. But if you had a cryptid that a movie would be made of that you would like to see a full-blown theatrical production, no expenses are limited whatsoever. What
You're
cryptid?
asking me the question that
I'm
I asked
asking you.
Chris last
Yes, exactly. So, what cryptid would you
Filmmaker?
like to see a movie made of? Mhm.
Goodness. Okay, let me think here. Okay,
Public
I got it.
monster.
I've got it. Goat Man.
Okay.
Because, okay, let me tell you this. When I was 13, and I remember going into our school's library. And I always went into the section that had the, scary stories. There was those books that Shannon and I like both so much, the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. You know those ones?
Right.
So they had those, and they had, there was a book, and it didn't have a cover on it. It was like a black book with no cover art. And it had all these lore and legends in it. And I remember reading about the black dog. So there was that black dog that people would see, and it was kind of an omen that bad things would happen. And then but in that same book, it talked about Lover's Lane. And there was this couple that had went down, they parked, and they heard rocks being thrown at their car. Then they ended up seeing some half goat, half man, like jump up onto their car. And he's like, then they're freaked out. And so they hurry and they drive away. I think a couple months ago, somebody in the community was looking up Goatman stories. And so this is a shout out to whoever you are. I want to learn more. I love Goatman stories because I don't know why that one enchanted me so much, but it really did. And it just always stuck with me from there on out. So I think that if I could watch a movie, but one that's good, I want quality like Wolfman.
Right. No, of course.
So I want a Goatman like Wolfman. That would be what I want. So.
Okay, Hollywood, you have your request. I would like
That's
to
right,
see
filmmakers.
I would like to see, and not the adaptation as to the film that already came out, but and maybe not even a part 2, just have an original story right. But the Mothman Prophecies. I really liked Mothman Prophecies a lot.
Right.
I really like that, the John Keel adaptation to the film. But I would like to see a Hollywood film. And when I say Hollywood, I'm not just going to generalize it to Hollywood because there's so many independent filmmakers that make amazing movies that are really not affiliated with Hollywood. But I would love to see a full production story type of production of Mothman as the cryptid. I would like to see. So we have Goatman versus Mothman. There it is. There's the movie.
Yes. There it is.
Mm-hmm. And I see that last week, the trailer for Godzilla King of the Monsters is airing all over YouTube and Facebook. It looks okay.
Check it out.
But you need to be prepared at the fact that 11 is playing the lead role in the Godzilla movie.
Really?
Yes, she is.
Wow, I didn't know that. I saw this really cool advertisement for Stranger Things that they had like Star Something Mall. Did you see that?
No.
I enjoyed that. It was look it up. It's like I think it's kind of like a teaser for what season 3, and it's got Steve. It had Steve in it, and he was working at the mall.
Oh, okay.
So I'm interested to see what kind of, and I was thinking as I was watching that, I'm like, oh man, how cool would it have been to been an extra, dressed in all 80s, and you're like in this 80s era mall, I would have totally have done it.
Reliving my youth all over again back in the 80s.
Heck yeah, are you kidding? Take
lots of hairspray.
For a moment.
Sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
The big shoulders.
Shoulder
pads.
I had the very big Miami Vice puffy shoulders. Yes, I did.
Nice. Yeah.
Didn't wear socks, but had the comfy shoes, big baggy cottony pants.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, dude, I had these like sweater and sweatpant matching outfit with my hair in pigtails with these crazy like hair bands that have these like beads on it and these bright colors, and these crazy shapes, the zigzags and the triangles, and yeah.
All right, people. So along with putting in the comments below your favorite scary horror or psychological thriller or even sci-fi movie, please put pictures of yourselves from the 1980s. That would be.
Please.
I will try to dig up a picture if I can.
Okay.
Of myself.
I've got one.
I'm sure you have seen them, Jennifer. I know you've been snooping through my album, my picture album.
I'm a noticer. This is my job. If you're my friend, I know everything about you.
Yeah, this is true. You do. So I'm sure you've seen those pictures. So if you do come across them, feel free to post them up there, and you can post a couple of yourselves from the fabulous 1980s, which happened to be a good era for a lot of relatively classic horror movies. Was the 1980s. So late 70s and 80s that really
we should
broke
give
the ice.
The title
in the
of this episode something, some kind of 80s and horror movie combined.
Right. There you go. Thanks everybody for joining us for our edition of Horror Scary Movies edition with the lovely Jennifer Ann over here and myself, Nance Nesbitt, as I'm known.
Yes,
the Nance.
The Nance.
So, up and coming episodes.
And thank you, Laura, folks. It was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for time traveling with us.
Bye, Jennifer.
Bye.
Watch your step, lest you move on death. It lay there cold, eating underneath your last breath. Hold your tongue, still I've gone. The beast that follows is close, but we'll move on. Snake eyes always on my tail. Snake eyes always up ahead. Oh, snake eyes hidden in the dark. Snake eyes better catch a spark. Blow out your candle and face a gloom. Stand strong in the midst of peril and impending doom. Will you fight or run and hide? When the storm winds blow, will you have the strength to turn the tide? Snake eyes always on my tail. Snake eyes always up ahead. Oh, snake eyes hidden in the dark. Snake eyes better catch a spark. Snake eyes always on my tail. Snake eyes always up ahead. Oh, snake eyes hidden in the dark. Snake eyes better catch a spark.